Hello, this is Danny Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. There was a number of very interesting, occasionally amusing, takes on what my sneak peek at the end of the last video was meant to be. But those who guessed a redesign of the Genesis Starliner, you are right. But it's actually a bit more than that. The starting point for this was another content creator who had been doing 2D alternative layouts of the floor plan of the Starliner, always staying within the original concept art. That struck me as unsatisfying because if there's anything completely obvious about the Starliner, it's that the Crusader style guide has been completely changed as soon as the Hercules arrived in the game, and subsequent Crusader ships have shown that more and more. So whenever we do see the Crusader Genesis in the game, it will almost certainly look entirely unlike the now quite outdated concept art of it. So that was my first point of curiosity. What would the Starliner look like when it is eventually done with the current Crusader style guides? And the first question from there is which of the several examples of more recent Crusader ships to take the strongest cues from? After all, the Ares is a very different ship from the Hercules. The answer I chose might surprise you. My primary design cues came from the Orison Skyway Shuttle, since it is the only in-game example of a Crusader ship designed for carrying multiple passengers. Beyond that, I took design cues from the Hercules, since it is the only Crusader ship of similar size to the Genesis, and then beyond that, I took the Spirit series, the much more visible cockpit, for reasons that I'll get into later. I also wanted to mimic the kind of low-to-the-ground proportions of the Spirit series. But at the same time, I wanted the new design to still be recognizably the Genesis Starliner, and not those other ships. So I stayed with the same purpose, the same dimensions, and that kept the form of a canard wing up front and a larger forward-swept rear wing. I also refrained from making changes that would fundamentally change the value of the Starliner, such as making the guns larger or adding internal missile racks. Not that that wouldn't be a good thing to add to the Starliner, but it would both change the price and positioning of the original idea of what the Genesis Starliner was. But I did add one design consideration. We've seen that with large luxury ships in the game, they get used for impromptu role-playing events. So I wanted my Genesis Starliner to have spaces suitable for large groups of players to get together socially. But this is all irrelevant in light of a broader concern. Why don't we have the Starliner after all this time? Why don't we have the E1 Spirit either? So the question is, what is it about this first description of the passenger transport profession that is proving to be a blocker of it, and thus the Starliner and E1 from being built? I feel it is obvious that the problem lies in NPC behavior. In several locations in this document, the success or failure of the game loop is tied to detailed interactions with the NPC passengers, getting and delivering their drink orders accurately, providing medical assistance, fixing their audio systems, etc. And thus, if the NPC passengers are stuck in a T-pose in your hangar, your mission has failed. And we all know that when a Star Citizen server gets stressed, the first thing that goes is the NPC AI behavior. So my conclusion is that the passenger transport profession is being blocked pending several orders of magnitude improvement in persistent universe AI stability. Now, I could just accept that too, or I could say, let's revisit that document with a different foundation. And that foundation is that NPCs are for decoration only. That if the server gets sketchy and the passengers are all stuck T-posed in the hangar, or not even spawned at all, you can still complete the mission with full success. It might be lacking in verisimilitude, but it won't fail. There will also be steps I'll be taking so that not every NPC passenger has to be realized in the game engine. I'll go into them separately, but we'll be inserting them when appropriate within the tour of the ship. Another alteration I made with the career description is that it said that there were 4 classes of service, and that the Starliner was designed just for the luxury class of service. In the real world, the class of service of an airline is dependent on how the aircraft is outfitted, not the airframe itself. And single class of service airlines are very rare. So I'm going to use modularity to let the player choose the class of service that is in their Genesis, or to even have mixed classes of service like real life. This way, we don't have to wait for 12 different ships of different sizes and classes in order to complete the passenger transport career choices. Which brings up a separate subject. In 3.24, we can now buy chairs and put them in any ship with available floor space, and they are functional, allowing a whole range of ships to act as ad hoc troop transports and drop ships. Why not just allow them to do the same for ad hoc economy class passenger ships? I'm going to say no for reasons both technical and lore. The technical reasons are, first, as tricky as the servers can get for NPC behaviors, imagine how much trickier it would be if they had no idea where their seat was and what obstacles might be in the way. The second technical reason is that there's no method for reducing the server load on having a large number of NPC passengers, and thus the hundreds of economy class passengers in these sardine cans would have to stay realized in the server and the graphics engine. The lore reasons are related to safety. There is insufficient life support and insufficient escape pods or lifeboats. Without those, the ships would not be certified as safe for passenger use, and few, if any, civilians would want to use them, no matter how low the fare. So with this, let me talk about the core systems of making all this work, and that is passenger pods. These have floor dimensions of 3 meters by 5 meters. They have their own independent life support, emergency rations, and in an emergency, they can be jettisoned to serve double duty as rescue pods. From a technical standpoint, though, they also serve as spawn and respawn closets. So, for example, at the start of the journey, the passengers enter the ship, go to their passenger pod, the doors close, and they despawn. During the journey, occasionally, server capacity permitting, one will spawn to leave the pod and wander about the public areas of the ship on some task or chore, and then at the end of the journey, the passengers respawn from the doors and exit the ship. This is how the Genesis in an economy configuration can hold a great many passengers, because at any given time, only a few are actually realized, greatly reducing server load. The passenger pods use the ship modularity system. My version of the Genesis has 20 of them. The coach module seats 16, the business module 8, the first module 4, and the luxury private cabin up to 2. This means that at all coach seating, the Starliner can hold 320 passengers, in all business 160, in all first class 80, and in all luxury private suites up to 40. There's also a corporate private module that doesn't serve as a passenger seating and spawn-despawn closet at all, but is instead an accessible room for the players themselves to roleplay. For the remainder of these videos, when showing renderings of the Starliner, I will be using the all-luxury configuration. And with that, I've reached the limit of my video. In the next one, I'll begin touring the ship in detail, in particular including how my revised notion of how passenger transport gameplay will fit into it. But since I knew you'd be disappointed without seeing at least some of what the ship actually looks like as a whole, here it goes. To be clear, this shouldn't be taken as a final design, only a schematic, so there's a lot of little details missing. As you can see, it's a bit of the Orison Skyway shuttle in the use of wraparound glass in the passenger areas, a bit of the Herc in the smooth lines and retro nacelles, a bit of the Spirit in the concept design, and from the original Genesis concept, the canard wings in front, and a forward-swept rear wing. It's a bit like every other Crusader ship, but also nothing like every other Crusader ship. It is meant to have cruise ship vibes, but also this strong shell covering it, protecting it, and gracefully impelling it steadily ahead. Now for an update on our ship giveaways. To start with, we have our special membership level to cover the cost of doing live coverage of CitizenCon with its own giveaway for Hull C, the colossal cargo container carrying craft. Although I am definitely expecting to make the trip to Manchester, the giveaway would still occur even if, for unforeseen circumstances, the live coverage has to be done remote. Plus, we have our regular Grow the Channel ship giveaway for the Zippy Zazzy Zaftig Zephyr, the Zeus 2 cargo, which we're just waiting on a subscriber goal for, as well as the marvelous multiplayer multi-role mining meta, the Erasta. 1 entry per video, be a member for automatic entry with each video, or subscribe and comment, some including the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the ship I took the greatest inspiration from in redesigning the Genesis Starliner. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guide.